Hi, friends. Darren Mott, retired FBI supervisory special agent and owner of Gold Shield Cyber Investigations and Consulting, with another episode of You Ask Gold Shield Cyber Answers. And I'm actually doing a several episode series on specifically the dark web. And as a business owner, should you care about whether your credentials are on the dark web, or should you care about the dark web at all? Short answer, absolutely, you should. There have been lots of data breaches over the course of years in which your employees and your own personal likely information is being traded on the dark web, not just your personally identifiable information, but your corporate credentials. In other words, your login and passwords that you get into the special pieces of your network that are restricted ideally to just your employees or your business partners, if you will. So before we get into really, should you worry about the exposure, how to find out how exposed you are, let's first understand what the dark web is exactly. The internet's divided into three simple sections. The surface web, these are the sites we go to on a daily basis. This is going to be LinkedIn.com, YouTube.com, CNN.com, FoxNews.com, anywhere you can go to that anybody can get to without a login and password and see the information on there. Commercial sites, things like that. The deep web are areas where you need simply a login and password. This is where your medical records are stored, where you have legal documents and things like that. So if you have to log into it, it's part of the deep web. The dark web is just a smaller section of the deep web that you require some special tools. And when I say special, it's really not that special. The media tends to make it seem like it's this complicated place. It's not hard to get to. If you have a Brave browser, you can simply click on Brave browser with Tor, and you can get into the dark web right there. But then navigating the dark web is a little more complicated. The websites are not easily organized. It's not specifically easy to search if it's not something you're used to. So it's not like you can just kind of go and find all your information. You really need special tools to be able to find out exactly how deep your information's been compromised. And whether you know it as a business owner or not, or rather as an individual, your credentials are being traded on the dark web. Legitimate login and passwords are there. I worked with a company once and their CEO hadn't changed his password in 8 years, and bad guys knew what it was. And theoretically, if they could find that corporate website, they could have used those legitimate credentials to get in. So having an exposure report is important to understand. How vulnerable is your company to a hacker getting in? Because hackers really don't hack in per se, they log in. So data exposure reports are very important. They're not that hard to get to. And actually, I'm creating a methodology to be able to provide those to businesses. It doesn't take long. It can give you a very quick look at what your exposure is, and I'll talk about that in another US Gold Shield Cyber Answers. But the short answer here, should you care about your exposure on the dark web as a business owner? Absolutely, you should. If you want more information on this, you can check me out, Darren at goldshieldcyber.com. You can check out my website, goldshieldcyber.com. And in a video coming up later this week, I'll talk about how, if you want, I can get you an exposure report, and I'm going to actually do it free for a couple people that come to me quickly that say, hey, I would like that exposure report, or at least to understand that. So if you want to get in early before I even talk about what that is, you can email me now. You can hit me up in a message, and we can talk about that. But I'm going to have the ability to be able to provide to a business owner, here's how bad it looks like for you, and ideally give you some suggestions on how to protect that. Like I said, this is something that I'll do for free for a couple right off the top, but ultimately it will not be a free service. It'll be something that I charge for, simply because it's not free for me to do it, but something to think about. So if you have questions or thoughts, comments on the dark web and exposure reports, hit me up, like I said, at any of these sites. As always, I appreciate you watching this video, subscribing to the YouTube channel for You Ask Gold Shield Cyber Answers, and we'll have more on the dark web later this week.